Hello, YouTubers. This is Gold Standard 924 coming at you with a GSTV podcast for you guys today. So, picking up where I left off, I originally was going to combine my WWE topics as well as my thoughts on uh, some of the TV shows that have been airing their winter finales are concerned. So, I was going to kind of combine those videos into one large video, but I just figured that the the transition of that just wouldn't really flow well, and the videos would just come off longer than they should. And then the third reason, given the fact that because I've had some subscribers that watch my videos on a consistent basis, some of my subscribers might not like a certain TV show that probably don't even follow whatever that I watch. So I mean, which is fine. Nothing against that. Um, yeah, so I decided to change my mind and basically split it into two videos. So WWE basically gave out my thoughts on the current state of their product in a 20-minute video. So I was also going to talk about some of the DC television shows and um, Power Rangers Dino Charge and a couple other shows I was going to make mention of. So instead, I'm just gonna kind of split that into two videos. So I already discussed about my WWE. So in this video, I'm gonna kind of pick up where I left off and basically strictly talk about the winter finales, TV shows I'm currently watching at the moment, depending on how you put it. So yeah, so without further ado, I want to also kind of give out my thoughts on Power Rangers Dino Charge to kick things off, and just aired its mid-season finale about yesterday, since I'm shooting this on a Sunday. And overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the finale of the episode. Now, like the week prior, they actually aired a Christmas special in between um, the episode where they were trying to search for the purple energem, and and then it kind of skips over to I think it was actually the wishing for a hero. Yeah, that was the name of the episode. So basically, where the Power Rangers were, wrote down a wish on a like a little white slip of paper, and basically anything that they wrote down, it would practically come to reality. And basically, just basically kind of giving you a bit of a recap of some of the characters, how much that they've come so far, and bringing up the fact that Tyler and Shelby had been um, teasing a relationship ever since the beginning of Dino Charge, and that also kind of gets comes back full circle, and as well as Tyler's search for his father kind of gets brought up again. So that was pretty cool stuff. But all this kind of culminates into the episode One More Energem, where Sledge has been Sledge and Poisandra. They've been kind of the kind of like the dysfunctional couple for Dino Charge, and Sledge has this Energem, and Poisandra kind of reminds Sledge that you know like when are they gonna get married? When are they gonna get married? Because they those two, there was a time when the Poisandra and Sledge were kind of together, and there's a bit of a rift between the two in recent episodes, and this kind of really is kind of going on the brink of it. It's just starting to crash and burn, to kind of summarize their relationship status at best. And Sledge promised to Poisandra if she, or once Sledge collects all the Energems, we can all get married, or at least just one more Energem. And Sledge just doesn't really keep his promise, and Poisandra just kind of breaks away from Sledge and just like, what, back off. I've given you many chances, trying to prove my love to you, but you just don't love me back. And at least that's how the situation goes. It's not exactly what she said. Um, and then there was also in that episode, Tyler's red energem gets uh, Sledge manages to get Tyler's red energem, so eventually, they had to go inside their ship to get it back, and as well as the purple energem. And there was actually a pretty cool moment. Yeah, you had the keeper and Kendall, who's like the mentor in this season, eventually gets taken. Well, keeper got taken hostage, and Kendall ended up becoming a stowaway. So she snuck aboard Sledge's ship to retrieve the purple energems, and even I don't think she realized Tyler's energem was there at the time, but she had her intentions going into that ship. They eventually find out. They lock her inside a containment prism that they would normally put their villains in. But eventually, her and the keeper eventually escape. Tyler had appeared on the ship, so and as well as Shelby, so they both kind of help each other out, get each other out of the ship. And also, Kendall manages to retrieve that purple energem and eventually morphs into the purple Dino Charge Ranger, which was something I would expect. I think the only downside of it is that even though Kendall became the Purple Ranger, it just kind of became a complete afterthought. So I thought that was the only downside to it. But a lot of that focus ended up turning towards Tyler and retrieving the Energem, getting out of the ship, and basically fighting off the last monster that Sledge ended up sending out on Earth. And basically the Rangers defeat the monster, and basically thinking as though that Sledge and all his goons have been destroyed. So eventually the Rangers go back into their normal lives, and Tyler's still searching for his father since he hasn't really had any luck the past few months. And Shelby joins on the ride, and Riley joins on the ride as well. So it really goes full circle. As far as when they met back in the first episode where Tyler was going on this trip, and bumps into Shelby, and Riley also joins in the mix as well, and helping those random civilians get out of that car that was about to detonate. So yeah, all three of them just kind of go on a ride, and basically kind of like episode 2 when they first met. So I thought that was a pretty cool ending there, and it was pretty obvious that at least one creature from Sledge's ship was likely to survive. So we might see a new villain debuting in Dino Charge. I believe it might be Heckle from Wishing for a Hero. So I mean, there's been kind of tension going on between him and Sledge in that one episode. So he might be the main villain of that Super Dino Charge. I'm not sure if Sledge is going to come back, even if it's just for like one episode. So maybe I don't. Maybe they'll probably assemble the pieces of Sledge. Maybe he comes back even stronger than ever. Um, I don't know about Poisandra though. I mean, she just blasted out. So um, maybe we'll see her again. Um, yeah, so I think that's really my just a brief summary of what happened in One More Energem. So I really enjoyed the episode. I'm really impressed with the season so far. Um, like everyone else, I really enjoyed this a lot more than Samurai and Megaforce. All those seasons, the previous 2 seasons, just been very a mess of ideas, or ideas that never really went anywhere. Like Jake and Gia's relationship that was supposedly presented throughout the show that um, hardly had any development as far as their bonding's concerned, because they were always focusing on um, other stuff that's been going on, um, when Robo Knight came in, they were always focusing on him and talking about what it means to be a human, and what exactly are human emotions, and teardrops, and Megaforce own problems, that it just never really had a concrete story. It's like Gosei summons these five random teens to become Power Rangers, and in a very similar fashion that Zordon did with the original Power Rangers. And then you had the Megaforce had their respective villains, but they didn't really have a motivation as to why they would invade Earth just because they're evil. There wasn't really much elaboration regarding their motivation as to why they would take over Earth, or at least a clear detail about it. Um, they just came there because they're the bad guys, la la la. But um, and Gosei was just kind of there. You didn't really see him a whole lot, so they never really gave an explanation about it, which is something you would hear in like one of those recurring gags. It's like there's a simple explanation for that, which was it's just I just couldn't stand Gosei. But really getting back to Dino Charge. It's actually a pretty tolerable season. I wouldn't say it's like on the levels of Power Rangers in Space or Power Rangers Time Force levels of writing, but I could say it does have a bit of a flow like what you would see in the late Disney era Power Rangers, like very lighthearted and goofy, but at the same time it does have a little more of a drive, like it's character driven episodes. And Tyler and Shelby's relationship being, the power couple, and establishing a bit of a bond between the two, and even some of the other Rangers as well. Not to disclude Riley and Chase and Coda. Coda had his history. Coming from the early prehistoric age, and being frozen and suspended animation for thousands and thousands of years. Um, and thanks to that Energem, they're both the Power Rangers could live for eternity, which was actually ridiculous to hear when I was watching that. Um, one of the earlier Dino Charge episodes where it was revealed that um, bonding with the Energem would help them live like immortals. So that's why they hardly age. So almost seems like something out of Highlander. I mean, unless you get your head chopped off, but you could just die and die and die again, and then just come back to life. But um, so oh man, I'm losing my train of thought here since my mind's all over the place. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. Kendall's actually being an asset to the Rangers. I know Keeper, he would always pop up whenever the Rangers need him, or whether just the story demands it. But at least he's on occasions he would come out there and fight for the Rangers and fight Sledge on occasions as well. I mean, not a whole lot, but I could see he does have a purpose. Um, you know, as one of their I was gonna say mentor, but it kind of feels like um, Kendall has been kind of more like a technical advisor, and I guess Keeper's supposed to be kind of like the mentor, but it's very confusing when I'm watching it. But yeah, so it's a very interesting dynamic for the characters here in Dino Charge. Yeah, so I think Dino Charge is looking up to be a really enjoyable season, and wouldn't say it's like an all-time greats, but it's on the right track, to put it that. All I know is that maybe Tyler will eventually find his dad. Eventually, it's just a matter of when. So maybe we'll find him maybe in an episode or two, maybe earlier, or maybe midway towards Super Dino Charge. So we'll have to see. Maybe Tyler and Shelby's relationship will escalate. Um, I don't know what else. And maybe we'll still see, Kendall, trying to adapt to her new purple energem, and as the Purple Ranger as well. So, um, yeah, so it should be something to look forward to. And Heckle, I believe that was his name, is likely going to be the villain here. I don't know if the Rangers do. Well, I don't think Kendall realizes that that Heckle is actually working for Sledge at one point. So I don't know if we're gonna see a confrontation with them once again. So I think they'll bring that up. Yeah, so Power Rangers Dino Charge. Looking forward to Super Dino Charge. Should be interesting to see what they have planned. I think Chip Lin, or some people know him as Judd Lin, who did Power Rangers in Space and Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed, Time Force. It's great to see him back in the writing staff again. Definitely thought he could have been a useful asset for the 20th anniversary Power Rangers team up. So um, yeah, so I definitely look for definitely liked his writing in those seasons, and I'm very glad that he's back on the staff, writing some of the newer Power Ranger episodes. So yeah, so Power Rangers Super Dino Charge should be a hell of a season, hopefully. So now that I've finished discussing about my thoughts regarding the finale of Power Rangers Dino Charge, I'm also going to be switching over to my thoughts on Once Upon a Time. Just talking about a little bit about the winter finale, but more specifically, just the storyline that the show's been going through recently with, Emma becoming the Dark One, which would eventually evolve into all the predecessors that have served as the Dark Ones, and and Captain Hook, revealing to be a co-holder of the Excalibur sword that ends up revealing that Emma and Hook are actually forged as the Dark Ones. So it's just a lot of twists and turns here and there. So it's when it comes to Once Upon a Time, the show can be a pretty complicated show, especially, considering how each episode is very. It's not as self contained compared to like a lot of certain TV shows, but so if you miss an episode, chances are you might not have a clue as to what's going on. So, I mean, I still keep up with the show. It's not like, I'm like the biggest fan. I'm not like that obsessed with the show. But I mean, I watch it as a casual viewer, um, but just with the direction that the show's been going through, it's been kind of hit or miss. I will say it's slightly better than the Frozen story arc from season four. I think it's just more because they were just marketing the hype out of the Frozen franchise, and you see all these cereal boxes and all this toys and merchandise regarding the Frozen movie, and basically a big impact in pop culture. I just never really understood the hype behind it, but going into the fifth season, I was like, maybe the show can turn around for the better. A lead character becoming a potential villain in the making, or at least that's what I thought going into season five. But I watched the first couple episodes, and I was like, okay, maybe just give it a chance. Like Emma's family and all her friends are, go to the Enchanted Forest where Emma was located. So, they bump into Merida and eventually King Arthur, and they're basically trying to find Merlin who could help Emma break away from the Dark One. Um, and then there's like a lot of twists and turns that have been going on, with Emma somehow sending uh, Emma's family. Eventually Emma just wipes away all their memories, very similar to Regina in season one. So it's basically like a mirrored version of the first season, but with the roles reversed. So Regina, was the previous villain. Turns in by this point has become a main character, one of their heroines of the group, and Emma has been kind of teasing a potential sign of just becoming what Regina used to be. Um, so that would go on throughout the first few episodes. And I guess my main complaint is that, they kind of brought up the whole Regina just being doubtful that, um, that all the sins that she's committed, all the bad deeds that she's done, and, basically murdering her father, or like ripping the heart out of Sheriff Graham. If you might remember him from like the first few episodes of the season before Emma took over as sheriff. Um, you know, just doing all these questionable antics. And Regina's just trying to find a way to kind of redeem herself with in like one episode, and I don't think it really went anywhere beyond the second episode. I know, she and Zelina, her sister, have been kind of going through, have some tensions going on, and basically Regina sending Zelina back to Oz. She had been pregnant back as far back as the end of the third season, where I think Emma Hook went back in time and tried to fix the past to make sure that her parents were able to get together and get married and stuff. And then like one of the characters died. I forgot her name, which is kind of embarrassing. But yeah, so eventually Zelina at some point takes over the form of Robin Hood's wife, and ends up getting her pregnant without Robin Hood realizing that it was Zelina all along. So it's just a lot of weird stuff that's been going on, which I think that's one of the things that kind of turned me off as a viewer for a bit, especially in recent seasons. But and the Emma, the Dark Emma idea was interesting, but the as the episodes progressed, she wasn't really showing signs of doing anything so fickle or cold. I mean, I guess you could say maybe aside from that one moment where she ripped out Violet's heart, who was King Arthur's daughter and a love interest for Henry until she ended up friend zoning Henry, and then basically, other than that, she hadn't really done anything that was considered hostile in a way, compared to like the dark ones that came before her. Um, so yeah, so eventually, by the time you got to the episode where it's revealed that the broken sword, which they've been kind of planting the seeds for quite some time, where it's revealed that Captain Hook actually died at some point, so Emma had to use some magic to revive Captain Hook, and and that kind of meant sacrificing her own purity in order to become a full-fledged Dark One. And that's where she kind of got the black suit with all the getup and the bleach blonde hair with that slicked back on her hair. Um, yeah, so I figured going into it that that maybe Emma might have changed her look like gradually rather than just poof in an instant. You would think that maybe at some point that that from head to toe that you start to see like a slow gradual change of her appearance that will kind of indicate you that that she's gone completely different. Um but nope, they just kind of like the moment that Emma tried to revive Hook, she just kind of poof into her dark swan appearance, if you will. Um, I thought the acting for the winter finale was pretty good. With Jennifer Morrison and what is that? The actor that plays Hook. I think his name was Colin O'Donoghue. I thought they were pretty solid for what they were, as far as the scene where Emma ends up killing Hook reluctantly, and in order to kind of have him die as a hero, and basically kind of giving the payoff as far as him and Mr. Gold or Rumpelstiltskin. They've had their bad blood for the past several seasons. Um, and then, I think the reason why I just felt the ending was kind of a bit of a turn off was more because, they've been, going back to Mr. Gold, they've been kind of building it up and building up, building up, and building up about, how he's, how he should be the hero, and he has the heart of a hero, but he's just afraid, or he just doesn't uh, believe in himself. But just trying to be brave. Basically, with Merida coming in to kind of help train Mr. Gold, and to kind of boost his confidence, and that he should be like try to stop, not trying to stop, but try to relinquish the Dark Ones, because he was the previous Dark One before Emma ended up succumbing to the darkness. And basically, despite his efforts, they just kind of undid all that, and he goes back to being the Dark One. So I mean, I was like, what was the point of that? Especially with all that hype going in, like, um, trying to save Belle from Merida, who had like transformed into an animal, and and then Mr. Gold had to save Belle. Um, but yeah, I just thought that he would just kind of no longer be the Dark One, just kind of cut ties from his past. I mean, granted, the past he can't really change for the most part, but he could always change for the better. And eventually everything just kind of went back to the status quo, as they say. And eventually, even though Hook died, Emma's just starting getting all these, Emma's just very stressed out, and eventually she and the gang try to find ways to travel to the underworld, where Hook is located in. Um, and I don't really understand like why they're okay with Henry coming aboard. You would think there'd be some kind of like conversation going on saying that no, Henry, this is too dangerous. You shouldn't be there. I mean, I don't. I mean, there was just nothing that talks about Henry's disapproval of entering the underworld. Given all the circumstances that have happened. Getting kidnapped by Peter Pan, and getting kidnapped once again by Cruella de Vil, and all this, all these past villains that they've defeated or that have been killed from many years ago. It's like why would you risk? Why would especially a child so young would risk their lives to go to a dangerous place? Um, And then, basically because if you look at the episode title Swan Song, so it kind of reminded me of what would have been the final episode of Supernatural. It kind of reminded me of that, in a sense that, the way that Hook got sent to the underworld was kind of like, um, Sam going to hell with, especially when he got possessed by Lucifer, and, Lucifer and Michael, they got trapped in the cage inside hell, so they fell into that pit in the cemetery. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, as far as the idea of the one of the main characters, going to hell, and um, that sort of thing. And I think I remember they also mentioned about something about the Mark of Cain in that episode. I don't think it's called the Mark of Cain, but if I'm hearing it right, it almost sounds like um, because it seemed like that show and Supernatural seemed to share like very similar storylines. So I'm not sure if that's just coincidence or um, something else, but maybe it's coincidence. I don't think they're just purposefully ripping off each other's storylines. I mean, I know Arrow's also doing a storyline about the darkness, especially when you have a lead villain in Damien Dark for season 4. So I don't. So they're obviously making puns about the main villain. Now, like Oliver Queen's, willing to get out of the darkness, and now he's found the light. Since he and Felicity are together. Overall, Once Upon a Time, I'm kind of disappointed with the whole story arc. Um, so much hype, but it just kind of ended up becoming a letdown. Winter finale was all right. I said it was solid, as a matter of fact, for what it was, but I think just the storyline going into it, so throughout the course of the episodes overall, just didn't really live up to expectations. Yeah, so that's really my thoughts on the current of the first half of season 5 of Once Upon a Time. Look, I'm also going to be transitioning over onto another set of topics I want to discuss about in my podcast, and that uh, correlates to my thoughts on the Arrow Flash crossover team up that just happened earlier this week. And overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this episode. Well, especially if we're going to compare Arrow and Flash's episode as one crossover episode in general, but it wasn't the greatest team up in the whole universe. That'd be an overstatement. I mean, going into it, I mean, when it comes to, a crossover event between two shows consisting of a large ensemble cast, it does get kind of a little bit difficult because you have like this whole, everyone's just so crowded, and certain characters come in and out of certain scenes, and then they just kind of disappear in the shadows, and you don't see them throughout the remaining half of an episode. But which was kind of what I was worried going into it. Um, and then I think that the reason why I preferred the Flash episode over the Arrow episodes, because with the Arrow episode wasn't a like all that bad, but I just think the whole subplot of the DNA paternity tests, regarding Oliver and his son, and all those years ago when Oliver dated this one chick and ended up having a one night stand just a couple years before he set off with his father and ended up disappearing without a trace. Um, yeah, so I think that was the only downside for that Arrow episode because that kind of seemed out of place for the crossover episode. I guess that kind of applied with the Flash as well. I could just point out some minor nitpicks, with some of the stuff that's been going on with, Dr. Wells getting shot by Patty for, uh, just coming in and just, shooting Dr. Wells, and without even asking questions and stuff. So that just kind of seemed very awkward, I mean, granted, she doesn't really know about, the whole existence of parallel universes and alternate timelines and whatnot. It kind of made her seem a bit of a criminal that way. Now, granted, Dr. Wells, this is a different Dr. Wells, obviously, so, um, unlike, in their real time where, like, he was disguised as someone from the future that, murdered Barry's mother. Um, but, um, but I don't think it took away too much from the Flash episode because you got to see Cisco continue his relationship with Hot Girl, and he didn't realize that he was Hot Girl. He was a reincarnation of that particular historical figure from many years ago, and basically that kind of segs way into the Arrow episode where the love triangle kind of extends a little more. I mean, it wasn't really emphasized as much in the Flash episode. Basically, Barry, basically, Cisco and Hot Girl were dating, and then, Vandal Savage comes in and tries to harm Hot Girl, and um, basically Barry comes in to save the day as the Flash, and they didn't know what to do, so they had to go to Star City, just to kind of hide from Vandal Savage and figure out what to do with her and how to keep her safe. Um, so Vandal Savage, he's like this immortal being. Um, I know Cisco referred to him as a Highlander. For those that are familiar with that franchise, basically you have these two combatants fighting it off to the death, and basically when you die, you basically come back to life unless you get your head chopped off because there's um, a big contest that's going on, and you can't fight in holy ground, and you have to duke it out with your swords, and the only way uh, to triumph in your bout is to chop your opponent's head off, and then that releases the power of the quickening, where you absorb uh, the person's energy into yourself. Um, if that makes any sense. But that was basically the mythology of the Highlander franchise, Highlander universe, especially if we're talking movies or even the TV show that came out in the early mid '90s. So yeah, so I thought it was, I think Vandal Savage, I mean, I'm not really digging his acting too much. I think it was decent at best, um, but we have to see where this is going to go from here. I mean, he didn't really feel like a menacing villain, at least as depicted in the show's version. But um, but we haven't seen the last of him. And if you basically saw what happened at the end of the Arrow episode, where Malcolm came in and dug up the remaining ashes of Vandal Savage after Team Arrow and Team Flash banded together and used the weapon used to basically his Vandal Savage's goal was to just wipe out Earth's existence. Um, but at the end of the day, Team Arrow and Team Flash, they triumph, and basically they don't realize that Malcolm is kind of just has some trick up his sleeve, which is something that is kind of normally expected out of him. But overall, I really enjoyed the Arrow Flash team up. Yeah, so like because like I discussed about certain characters, like it's just so crowded that some of them might get a few lines, and some of them just might disappear into just not show up in the last scene. So it's something that was expected, and I was kind of worried that would flop, but I really enjoyed this team up. Not the greatest thing in the whole universe, obviously, but um, yeah, I mean, I think the only also another downside is not necessarily regarding the episodes itself, but kind of more like, in terms of the long term effects, because Legends of Tomorrow, I was just reading up this website on Cinema Blend about how, the show's going to heavily emphasize on, time traveling and special effects that will be presented throughout the course of the show. And it turns out that the show has gone through over budget, and and normally when that happens, it's like you only uh, have such an expensive uh, show that you're producing, and it's only a matter of time before your show ends up getting pulled off the plug after a certain number of episodes. And Legends of Tomorrow will only be like a mid-season replacement, so it'll have somewhere between like 13, 16 episodes. And I think my concern is just the fact that if Legends of Tomorrow only ends after like the first season, it's like, what was the point of this crossover? It's like they've been, especially the way that they've been hyping up the show very heavily throughout most of this year in 2015. So that my concern regarding the setup for this particular show is like, what happens if the show flops? Like, what was the point of I was gonna say over promoting Legends of Tomorrow if it turns out to be a bust? Like what's gonna happen when they look back at this Arrow Flash crossover that kind of leaves like a black eye as far as the quality of the team up is concerned. But I guess that's another thing to kind of factor in, and also with the actors, Wentworth Miller and Dominique Purcell also have are contractually obligated to produce a Prison Break revival. So how is that gonna work? How is that gonna get situated? Especially if Legends of Tomorrow turns out to be a success. What's gonna happen with those two? Are they gonna stick around? Are they gonna are they gonna take? Are they gonna leave Legends of Tomorrow in order to go on? To do the Prison Break revival. For now, I mean, Arrow and the Flash crossover event, I really enjoyed. I'm just kind of worried that the long term wise, it might hurt them in the long run, especially the way that they've been overhyping the hell out of Legends of Tomorrow. So, um, I think, but I'll probably give it a shot, and let's see where it goes from here. Yeah, so that's really my thoughts on the Arrow Flash team up. Pretty, like I said, pretty enjoyable episode. So now that's out of the way. I also want to kind of give out my thoughts on some of the recent episodes of the 11th season of Supernatural, and basically, the darkness storyline, I was kind of very, I guess, somewhat skeptical, especially with one of the main villains, I guess you could say, with the whole idea of Dean and Amara getting together and promoting like pedophilia in a way where it's like when Amara started off as a baby, then she grows rapidly with age within a short amount of time. So like she was a baby at the beginning of the season, and then an episode or two from there, she becomes a child, and then becomes a preteen, then a teenager, and then her full adult form that you saw in Dean's vision when the darkness was just spreading all over, the Impala and all over, pretty much all over the world, really. She's uh, taking all the souls out of random people and making them do all these crazy things, and getting to the point of their getting to the breaking point where they're just slaughtering their loved ones. Yeah, so they also brought back Lucifer, yeah, one of the main villains from season 5, and I also kind of wonder where is Michael in all of this. I mean, I could have sworn Michael and Lucifer were trapped in the cage simultaneously. So, but like I said, it's very cool to see Lucifer back, and wondering what they're gonna do with that. Um, we haven't really seen a lot of Castiel, so I'm not really sure what's been going on. Is he really binge watching Netflix? He's watching Jenny Jones reruns. Like, I mean, I know she had like a talk show in the '90s, but I was like, Jenny Jones? Like, you're watching a TV show that like I don't know, but yeah. So Cass has been kind of MIA for most of the 11th season, and he's just been kind of distraught, after, all the events that happened where Rowena like plucked her eyeballs and making him do all these crazy things, and all his friends, all his angel friends are dead, and just wacky ass stuff that's been going on. So I guess you gotta feel bad for the guy. Um, can't think of episodes. I like the episode with the Impala, where they basically have Dean and Sam trying to come to terms, and basically a day in the life while they're just driving inside the Impala, and listening to some Bob Seger, and and a little cameo appearance by a younger version of John Winchester, which was pretty cool. I really wish that Jeffrey Dean Morgan would come back for that episode. I think that would have been a good time, but it is what it is. But I enjoy the actor that plays young John Winchester too. So nothing against him personally, but yeah, I like that episode. Um, God, I'm kind of think of something else. I think the imaginary friend with Sam episode was pretty cool too. I'm just kind of surprised they kept like recasting all these child counterparts of Dean and Sam. Like over the years, it's been because this show has been running a lot longer than it has been, because it was only run for like the show was meant to only run for like a few years, and then the popularity started to grow, and the fan base that grows, and Supernatural will end up running longer than it ended up running. So it's kind of amazing to see like all these different child characters portraying Dean and Sam, or child actors that are portraying Dean and Sam, excuse me. Um, yeah, so I mean that episode I really enjoyed, even though the ending was a little bit cheesy. With the little girl, well, yeah, with the girl just uh, pointing the weapon over to the imaginary friend, um, and giving out all these excuses as to why Sam's imaginary friend should die and stuff. But eventually, she kind of comes to her senses, and basically nobody dies aside from all the other imaginary friends that end up getting bloodied and battered in each scene. Um, but I think other than that, I thought that episode was all right. Um, and and like I said about Lucifer coming back was pretty cool. But currently we have to see who this whoever this god is supposed to be. I'm pretty confident it's Chuck. Um, just kind of foreshadowing a little bit of foreshadowing from the end of season 5. So, um, yeah, I think Chuck's gonna come back, and I don't know what other expectations I would have going into the 11th season, um, but it's definitely stepping its game up. I mean, I like this a little more than 10. I think 10 kind of dragged on with the whole Mark of Cain storyline, and um, basically Dean becomes the demon for like a few episodes, and then eventually that he's no longer possessed by a demon, but still has signs that he could turn into a demon the next time he dies. Especially as long as the Mark of Cain's still on him. And they kept dragging on and on and on and on. I think it's the 11th seasons so far is looking up to be pretty solid. But I think the Mark of Cain, the episode where Dean confronts Cain in that season 10 episode was actually one of the few bright spots of that season. Um, I think that's really my brief thoughts on Supernatural. So I'm still keeping up with the show. So I mean, I can't say I know all of every detail as far as the direction the show's been going recently. But yeah, so that's really my thoughts on the mid-season winter finale of the 11th season of Supernatural. Now, before I get to the end of this video, I also want to kind of give out my thoughts concerning Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a show that I haven't really taken the opportunity to discuss in my videos. I know this show's been running for over 2 years, and um, with when it comes to Marvel and some of the TV shows and movies that they've been putting out, it's I don't know, it's just kind of overwhelmed me for some reason. Like especially when it comes to theaters and how expensive some of these movies are, given the heavy amount of budget that the movies have with the special effects and the stories. And I guess just what I'm basically trying to say is just how expensive some of the movies are when you go to theaters to watch your favorite superhero movie, whether it be like an Ant-Man or the second Avengers movie that came out not too long ago, and um, and the Captain America movies coming out next year. So there's a lot of stuff to be looking forward to, and especially for a hardcore superhero fanatic. But me on the other hand, I just haven't really found the time to really get those movies. Or, I mean, I know they'll be released on DVDs and Blu-rays, and um, I guess there's just so much to follow that I just kind of, just kind of stopped watching it for a while because I was just kind of lost in the storylines and all the stuff that's been going on. Um, but I decided to come back, and I mean, when I watched the first season, everything just kind of felt like it was really trying to find itself up until like the second half, where they were really when they found out that Agent Ward was working with Hydra and ends up betraying Coulson and his team, um, and I think that really helped the show because I don't think if it wasn't for if Ward hadn't sided with the forces of evil, had he not been siding with Hydra, had he not done all those things, then I'm not even sure if the show would have even gone past the first season, to be honest. I gave it a second chance, coming back and see, all the fuss that's been going on, and Gemma getting sent to another planet, and the episode that they did, just strictly about Gemma's point of view and all the struggles that she'd been going through while adapting to life in another planet. But yeah, so Gemma finds out this that there's also another person living there named Will, and Gemma's doing all she can to find a way to get out of that planet and go back to her home, and she can't really contact with her friends and her teammates, even though she has her phone, and basically there's just a lack of Wi-Fi in that particular planet that she was in. But I thought that was actually pretty cool. It was very unique. I mean, normally with Shield episodes, it was just like everything's all over the place. And but here it was actually pretty unique, and I think that was the episode that really had me sold on the direction that the show's been going through. But it was very unique. It was very simple. What Gemma doesn't even realize this. But eventually the Will that Gemma ended up dating is not actually Will. His actual counterpart was killed along with other space astronauts when they were discovering the planet. But yeah, so Gemma does not know that yet. But Fitz does find out, and Coulson as well. Which kind of brings me to the winter finale episode. And basically, that kind of really blew me away. And basically, in the beginning, Coulson and Rosalind, they were, having dinner together. And then in the beginning of the episode, out of nowhere, it's like Rosalind ends up getting shot, um, by Agent Ward or Grant Ward. Um, I'm still kind of used to calling him Agent Ward. Maybe it's just easier, or just the fact that I'm kind of can't help but think of him as when he was part of Shield, but we'll just call him Ward, really. But yeah, so Ward ended up killing Rosalind, and Coulson's like in shock, and he's very enraged, and um, eventually his whole team kind of go in this interrogation, um, talking about Grant Ward, and what and just the influence they had, or how much impact they had as far as their connections and their relationship. Um, their times together, and basically that what had been going on after all the events that have happened since Ward showed his true colors and basically siding with Hydra the whole time. And basically you know Fitz and Simmons, they end up getting kidnapped, and basically God, I can't. I'm trying to remember this very well, but eventually, Fitz goes to the planet, and it goes to that same planet where Gemma got sucked into, and as well as along with the Hydra members as well, including Ward. So, yeah. So basically, they go find Will, and basically, Fitz tries to get him out of the planet or find a way to, escape the planet. And they're trying to find. I believe they're trying to find a city, or at least they end up finding out that there was actually used to be a civilization in that planet that Gemma, somehow did not discover when she was there. Um, and eventually, Fitz ends up finding out that that Will isn't actually the real Will. That it's actually like a shapeshifter of sorts. I'm not too familiar with the comic books, so if someone could clarify me on the details, please let me know. So I mean, I'm not that big of a comic book geek, so but eventually they find out that it's some creature that took the form of Will, or at least possessing the remnants of Will's body. Um, yeah, so eventually, Fitz and with the help of Coulson ends up killing the creature that was possessing Will, and cremating his body subsequently. And then Coulson gets his revenge on Ward, and basically and successfully avenges Rosalind's death. And even after that, Ward ends up showing up, and actually is possessed by the same creature that possessed Will, if I'm not mistaken. And that's pretty much how that finale episode ends, and at least in a nutshell. Um, so yeah, so this finale is really enjoyed. Um, I like the reference where I believe when Lincoln was calling the whole team Power Rangers, so that kind of caught me by surprise for some reason, which is ironic considering the fact that one of the actors from Power Rangers Wild Force actually had a little cameo like a couple episodes prior. So I thought that was a nice touch there. I'm but yeah, so basically Shield, the Lincoln and his team were basically trying to um open the portal so that Coulson and Fitz could come back. So, basically what they did earlier in the episode where they try to get out Gemma. So, um, yeah. So, like I said, I really enjoyed the winter finale episode. We have to wait 3 more months. So now that Agent Carter is supposed to be the mid-season replacement, like last year, so it's gonna kind of be a bit of a placeholder for the next couple months, which should be pretty interesting for some of those people who are also fans of the spin-off show. Um, let's see what other else. I just can't really think of anything else. But but yeah. So I mean, with the whole rivalry between Coulson and Ward is um, something. It just kind of feels like a real bad blood feud. It almost feels like a professional wrestling feud, which is something you don't really see anymore, especially in WWE. It's like that's something that I really missed, and this isn't even professional wrestling, but this is the type of stuff that I miss. Ward being like this sadistic sociopath villain that you just want to see him get killed and just harming all these people and alienating the people that cared for him and all this sort of stuff, and Coulson just being the sympathetic baby face and doing whatever he can to make sure that his teammates or his close ones aren't their lives aren't in jeopardy. um just all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I think the actor that played Ward, is pretty good job at being a villain. I think really enjoyed him. I think his name was Brent Dalton, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, so really enjoyed him, as a villain throughout. I know there's some fans that probably complain that that he's kind of overstayed his character's kind of overstayed his welcome. Um, so yeah, there's always kind of twists and turns. Like there's always he's always out there. No matter how many times you just pulverize him and how much damage he's taken, somehow, some way, Ward is gonna come back to get his revenge. And um, but yeah. So this take of Agent Ward would be pretty interesting to say the very least. I'm kind of surprised they kept him as a villain for this long because, especially in some TV shows, you would have like a villain stick around for like one season and then they get killed off and then they move on to a next villain, rinse and repeat there. So, I hope I clarified it well. So if I didn't, I apologize. So, yeah, so I think that's really my brief thoughts on, just Agents of Shield, especially the finale episode and basically all the stuff that's been going on recently. So, um, if I happen to kind of if I happen to like mislead some of you guys, I apologize. So, I've been watching the show. I'll probably maybe buy the DVDs or the Blu-ray edition someday, so I could go into more concrete detail regarding the show and the basically the storylines that have happened throughout the show's run. So this is just kind of a bit of just my reaction so far. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below regarding these shows. If there's shows that you like or disliked, or some of the episodes or storylines that what are your guys' thoughts on some of these TV shows? So yeah, this is pretty much it for my GSTV podcast. Thank you guys for watching. And until next time, this is Gold Standard Caesar 924 signing out.